Hello, welcome to the tutorial on Neapolitan chords. So Neapolitan chords are, as profound an effect as they have and as distinctive a sound as they have, are one of the easiest progressions to write in terms of voice leading. In fact, they're far easier to write than the diatonic progression that they're based on. Speaking of which, here's what we have. Here's those progressions, and we're in the minor, and Neapolitan most often occurs in the minor. It's rare in the major. So here we have an A minor, a 1 to 2, 6 to 5 to 1. So, do, re, ti, do is a very common soprano or an inner voice. And what the Neapolitan is the lowered scale degree. So again, just to back up just to review. So it's your absolutely typical tonic, predominant, dominant, the tonic progression. So the Neapolitan is an alteration of the two, lowering the root to by a half step. So this chord is diminished in the minor. When you lower the root to Ra, the chord now becomes not dissonant and unstable, but in fact stable. And that's the unique quality about the Neapolitan, that for all of its distinctiveness and even intensity, it's not an unstable chord. In fact, it's the opposite. It's far too stable. And it's the startling part is coming out of it. And so you see this voice leading that emerges in the soprano. Do, re, ti, do. That diminished third. It's super intense. And now this is called their flat 2. A little flat something like that. Or you can also call it, if you like, N6, Neapolitan 6. Either one works. The chord was so distinctive, people back in the 19th century decided to come up with a cool, exotic name for it. But it's just flat 2. So now the voice leading, the Ra, must go to T. T, as we remember, well, let's just look at the rest of the chord. So it's Fa. Usually you double Fa. And Lay and Ra. The Lay, as we recall back from last semester, in context of a 2-6 in the minor, Lay must go to Sol. And that's to avoid the augmented second of Lay, otherwise going up to T. Lay to T is augmented second. So in other words, just like you do when you approach a 5 from a 4 or a 2-6 in minor, you've got to approach that T from above. It's just this time it's from Ra instead of Re. So the Re to T is that characteristic voice leading. Don't avoid it. Embrace it. It's always going to be there in the resolution of the Neapolitan 6 chord. Now, if for some reason you find yourself doubling the root, it is possible. It's not completely unheard of. It doesn't create any voice leading problems if I change it there. If you find yourself doing that, or for some reason it just leads to that, especially in context of a modulation or something, then that just simply is inflected up to Re. So you can hear that. And otherwise, you would generally avoid doubling the altered tone like that because it's so distinct. So you might encounter that in the context of a modulation from another key. So otherwise, just double the bass, Fa. Okay, so there's really nothing else to say about that. It's just, the Neapolitan 6 in the first inversion is the most common version of it. But it's not impossible to see it in root position. And if you do encounter it, it's not going from a 1 to a flat 2. That's pretty rare. It would be in the context of a larger progression. usually in which you approach a descending fifth progression, which you come at it from a flat six. So, mm, and so there you have flat, you have six in minor, it's just six to flat two to five to one. Now, let's just look at this progression without the flat two. You can encounter this. The descending fifth progression is one that we studied a lot last semester. And it always has, at some point, if you, especially if it's a sequential pattern, you're cycling through all the diatonic chords, you're going to run into a weird uh, diminished chord and an augmented fourth or diminished fifth in the bass. In this case, it's you encounter that augmented fourth going from six to two in minor. So here's, and the two in minor is always, at the root position two in minor is always a little weak because it's a diminished chord. You really only encounter it in this kind of progression. So the bass goes do, la, re, sol, do, la, do, re, the augmented fourth. So always a little peculiar. So it's very tempting in the context to lower, to make that a perfect fourth. In that case, you make it a Ra. In that case, you will often double the root because you will double the flat two because it's the root. So listen to the progression now. So it's not just now you drop down to the flat six and then go to flat two. Okay, well, that was weird. I didn't adjust moving to the five. So I've got to go re, ti, do, ra, ra, ti, do. I've got to put that in there. So now you have the odd diminished fifth, the tritone, coming from flat two to seven. So that makes that all the more intense. Let's listen again. And that is, you will encounter that too. And when you do have it, then you kind of double down on the stability of flat two. It really does pose. What's disturbing about the Neapolitan or the flat two is that it poses a kind of a stable region to which the return to tonic is intense and dissonant sounding, unstable sounding. It's like you have a precarious hold on the original tonic. It undermines tonic, literally undermines it. So these are two ways of thinking about flat two. The first one, and the root position, the first inversion is the most common by far. But the second one you will encounter in more expansive explorations of this flat side of the minor scale. And in every case, to keep in mind, the upper voice leading has got to go Ra, to Ti, to Do, that diminished third. As odd as it sounds, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. All right.